All right, and welcome to this episode of Better Call Saul, where Rachael Real from Rachael Real Estate in Chicago and I talk to Saul Klein. Hey, Saul, how are you?
Good, Jennifer. How you doing? Rachel?
Good morning.
It's always It's good to see you guys. It's like we just did this the other day.
It's always a good conversation. That's
always enlightening. Well, let's talk about, so we're seeing a lot in the news about Rex Real Estate, that they may be closing up shop, that they hired this attorney, and about their lawsuit against Zillow and NAR for antitrust. But can you tell us what happened and why is this all over the news? Why do we care?
Well, the first reason we cared, it appeared in the news, right?
Right.
We've been reading about this. We've been listening, and the big news is they hired David Boies, who was the Al Gore attorney back in the whatever year that election was, and big name attorney to take on NAR and Zillow in this lawsuit. So that's the news today.
Well, also too, that they're doing that in light of also sending a note to all of their agents who were employees that counseled them to change brokerages.
So here's a company
and take all their escrows with them.
Yeah, here's a company that's a brokerage firm, has I don't know how many thousands of agents. Mm-hmm. It's got a completely different business model. Mm-hmm. It doesn't utilize the multiple listing service. It doesn't, evidently it has got part of its model is non-agency for sellers. Mm-hmm. And so it's just an odd, different way of doing things. And so the news was the new attorney, but the other news, the secondary news, was that all the agents got a notification that the company was going, that agents should seek other brokers.
Why are they suing NAR and Zillow for antitrust?
Well, it looks like it has to do with the let me go back historically.
Okay.
Tell a story here. Is that when realtors decided to take the power of bringing all of their listing resources together.
Yes.
That was, let's say you and me and Rachel, we've got listings and we've got power with our listings, and we decide we're going to market them together. Mm-hmm. We're going to market them together, and we're going to set up and we're going to pay and we're going to market our listings together.
Because prior to that, what was happening?
Well, prior to that, there was no, prior to that, there was no internet. So right. I'm talking right when there was an internet.
Right. Okay.
Right. So if we were but prior to that, no, if I took a listing, we have kind of evolved in the industry where primarily the types of listings were exclusive authorizations and right to sell. Mm-hmm. And so if I took the listing, I had to work hard to get that listing. Right. I had to prospect, I had to knock on doors, I had to do all this stuff, and I had to put money in, and eventually I get the listing, and now I got to spend money on the listing to sell it. And a listing, and a lot of times I don't even sell the listing, so I put in all that work and that effort, and I don't even make any commission on it. So it's got to be another value to listings, and there is. A listing is a marketing asset.
Yes.
Every time you take a listing, it's a marketing asset. And we used to have up the street from where I am is a really busy street. And I knew a realtor, he worked that busy street, and you'd always see his name on that busy street. And I knew a lot of those properties never sold, but everybody knew that realtor's name because everybody drove to work that way.
Right.
And his name was on that sign.
Right.
And so even the listings that don't sell pay you. So a listing is a marketing asset. So now when realtors weren't, so I took a listing, I put my sign. I didn't invite you over to put your sign. We could have had a deal to work. But if we did, does everybody else get to come and put their sign on my listing? Right. No, but somebody might say, hey, that's antitrust. No, this is business. Right. So the internet happened. And when the internet happened, like 1995, we started putting the idea. There was the big threat in the industry was something called public access to MLS. And nobody really knew what that was, but everybody was afraid of public access to MLS. I mean, there were actually lawsuits. People were consumers were trying to get access to the MLS. Same thing that is going on, right? And so that was, brokers were deathly afraid of public access to MLS. And so a couple of us came along and saw that there was this opportunity to put listings up and use this new thing called the internet, which really wasn't well utilized, and put those listings up on the internet and get more people to sell it. And realtors said, so when we went out to talk to realtors, and I'm a realtor, I had to go out and talk to people, say, here's this new thing. I think it's going to be really good for you.
Right.
And they say, well, you want to take all our listings and put them up here so everybody can sell them, see them? Yeah. But that'll help you sell them. It's good. And, but here's what we'll tell you. We won't let FSBOs go up here. And that was very important to realtors, because if you've got a critical mass, and that's what we called it, the listings that came out of an MLS consisted of what we refer to as a critical mass, and a critical mass would draw eyeballs. And so if our asset, the combined asset of all the brokers in a community that are members of an MLS, if that asset is going to draw eyeballs, you want it to draw eyeballs that go back to the benefit of the people that
the realtors.
Yeah, the people, it's their asset. As a matter of fact, they've worked and spent money over dollar after dollar and never got compensated for any of these things, right? So this is another way to get benefit out of their asset. And so that's what we told people initially with Realtor.com. And I had to tell brokers, don't put your listings anywhere else. Oh, it's antitrust, might be. But look, if you can fight for this idea, right? And so then a number of years later, say 15 years later, the idea of these new portals started popping up, like Zillow and Trulia, and all these, right? And besides Realtor.com. And so people wanted to get their listings there. So I ran a company where we would get contracts for multiple listing services, and we would put it in a language, we would say we normalize it. We put it in a language that Zillow and Trulia and all of them could very easily take and put it up on their website. Now, when we first got the data from MLSs, this was pre-data knowledge, and people didn't know the value. And so we would get these contracts that really didn't have any data restrictions. And we learned at point 2 that people were going to want to do things. They want to have derivative rights and create product from it. And so we said, and we wanted, when people saw MLS listings, because we went to the MLSs and got the listings, or private company got the listing, we wanted people, if they went to those sites, to see the MLS listings. We didn't want them to see the MLS listings and see other garbage listings so we wrote these contracts that said, look, we want to give you the data, but if you take the data from us, we have to be what we refer to as the authoritative source.
Okay.
That means, right, because in those days, those portals would take the data from whoever they could get it from. Yeah. Because they couldn't get it for us. And we said, look, we're going to give you the whole market. But in doing so, you have to agree that you're not going to, if you have ours and you have somebody else. Now, if the other has more fields, you can create a technology that augments the fields. Yeah. Right? But it has to come under from the. But if MLS. It has
the same field and it's competing, if the data is different, the MLS data feed rules.
So exactly, right? So authoritative source. And we thought that was consumer friendly. We wanted consumers to understand. We wanted them to know that there was an authoritative source, and the authoritative source,
which is the realtors, the MLS.
And realtors, and it's their data. Why shouldn't they benefit from that?
But why would, I don't know.
So that was the idea.
Okay.
Right? And so to me, it's
But why would we want that data everywhere? Because we were thinking if it's everywhere, then it helps the consumer and helps sell the property.
Well, we would want it everywhere because I wanted it everywhere. Okay. And I had a company, and that was our job, was to put it everywhere. So I created this phrase, distribution trumps destination. Actually, I read it in a magazine sent to me by one of my really good friends. Distribution trumps destination. And so all of a sudden, what became possible for realtors at the click of a push of a button at the speed of light, what became possible is the ability to put your listings everywhere. Yeah. And so here you are, you're a realtor, you can put your listings everywhere. And you say, well, I only want to put it in the best places. How do you know where the best places are? See, most realtors could not come to the logical conclusion as to which places. And so the most logical way to hit the best place
set them all
was do it all. And that was a logical argument. It made sense to realtors. You probably seen the diagram we created that had your listing in the middle and everything. Yeah. And so that's the way we sold this whole concept of pushing the data out to everywhere. And then, so we read about this case with Rex, get back to Rex. One of the things that an MLS also is created in the listings are agency. There's this concept of agency that's part of MLS, and consumers, whether they expect it or not, that's what they get through MLS. So listings from an MLS have a couple of other twists to them, typically looked at positively from a consumer's perspective. And Rex came up with this new model where they were going to take listings under different types of representation, and they were going to charge different amounts. And so for some reason, Zillow decided that and now Zillow's a broker, right? They're a broker now.
They are now, yeah.
When they're putting other listings on their site, should they put non-agent represented listings on their site?
No.
I'm not so sure that it's a wise decision. I don't know. The courts will probably tell us, right? We'll get a settlement, something will happen. Right. but I see no harm from Zillow. They might have caused harm to Rex, but I can see the logic. I mean, go back to the history that I just told you.
Yeah, I mean, on our website, I don't have listings that aren't in the MLS.
Yeah, yeah, and there might be reasons to do it or not, and somebody can't come in and say, well, you have to, because if you don't, I can't do business. And that's the antitrust claim, right? If I can't do business, I mean, that's always been the antitrust claim against MLSs. Right, is I have to belong to the MLS, because if I can't, I don't know that that's a true argument anymore. We talked about this last week. I think today I can sell real estate effectively without being a member of an MLS.
Mm-hmm. Right, because you have all of these third-party portals that you can source that information from.
Data's a commodity, right? Yeah, data's a commodity. And so nonetheless, there's value that an MLS brings, and one is agency. And if Zillow is a brokerage firm, and it is, I can see somehow them having some kind of reticence to the way that they display listings where the seller isn't represented.
Is it not part of the agreement that if the MLS is providing an IDX feed to other realtor member portals, that they are not allowed to, like, they can only have MLS listings, or they are allowed to have outside?
Well, there might be something here with local rules versus
oh, I see.
National, but I would think the bottom line is that's what you want. You can't, I mean, there's issues with this, right? And they're antitrust, and with antitrust, all they have to do is be able to make a claim. So I'm not sure. And then I talked about this, we've talked about this. The fact is that the very nature of MLS lends itself to antitrust. The very nature of what it is. Mm-hmm. But it's competitors coming together and compromising in order to deliver what I believe is a quality product to the marketplace, better than anywhere else in the world. People can argue, people can say whatever they want. Then there might be better ways, right? I mean, we used to say, if you could build an MLS all over again, if you could start from scratch, remember that question? What would you do? Because that was part of the strategic planning thing we used to do. So we've got a wonderful, wonderful tool to sell real estate in this country, and it's the MLS, and it's not perfect, and it has its own issues, and different business models come in, but often, and we've seen this since we brought technology into the real estate industry.
Wouldn't that be a thing if the DOJ did find that MLSs were a violation of antitrust?
Well, they have before.
You know what happened to our business?
Well, they found before that there's violation, and what happens is MLS then alters itself,
right,
to make the work.
No, but I meant like as a concept, like.
Yeah. Well, so yeah. What if these lawsuits prevail? Well, that's a worthy and interesting discussion. I don't think it necessarily is in the consumer's best interest. It's lawsuits that are trying to say that sellers were overcharged for having to pay buyer commissions. Mm-hmm. Well, if buyers were left up to them to pay commissions, would they? Probably not. No. So they probably accept more dual agency or unrepresented.
And then that becomes a problem too.
And that would be more of a consumer issue maybe than otherwise. And so it's just not looked at thoroughly.
But we care about, so Rex sent all their agents away, but they hired this high-powered attorney to still move forward with their antitrust claim against Zillow and NAR.
That's the case, and it'll be interesting to watch and see where they go. And it is interesting to look and see what is their business model that might be different than other business models that got it to where it is today.
Well, why do we care that they're suing NAR and Zillow?
Well, it's not so much we care directly that they are. What we care about is there's information here about the way different business models are penetrating the industry. And different methods of compensation and different amounts of technology innovation. It's those kinds of things.
Okay.
That we might. So I don't think we care. If Rex went out of business, it wouldn't. Now there are a lot of people. What about the poor realtors got something in escrow and can't get a broker to take the deal?
But do we care about if they're found, like if the court ends up agreeing with Rex or not? Does the decision?
I don't.
Yeah. How does that ultimate decision affect us as brokers?
I don't know enough about the details of what exactly Zillow was doing. I haven't gone up and looked at it, or or NAR other than what I know about NAR. So I would think
I think when I read it, it was Zillow was like my website, and I think like Rachel's website, where we're putting, because we're brokerages, we put other brokers' listings first. So anybody that was a non-member is either not listed, or in Zillow's case, it was listed like in this weird spot that was hard to find.
Well, so I don't know what weird spot is, but if you're telling me maybe a landing page that says all the listings you find here are seller is unrepresented, then that doesn't seem so weird to me, right? So I don't know where they're going, and I can see that you isolate something because it's completely different.
Yeah,
I can see where the plaintiff is saying that it's weird, or that it's
or like whatever. It's not amongst the others,
right?
No, it's there and it exists, but it's in its own URL, and you have to know the way to get there.
And if Zillow put it in with the rest of them, and somebody felt that they were mistreated or wronged, they could end up, there's liability there, right?
But and then the case would be argued if they did put it in with everybody else, then, well, they're not members of the MLS. The IDX feed is from the MLS.
Yeah, no, it's just like in the current construct, I don't see the degree of violation. I can see where it destroys their business model if they build.
Yeah, but that's not an antitrust violation, is it? I mean, I guess that's the question. Is that an antitrust?
Well, that's the question. Were they responsible, and did they collude and conspire to force this to cause damage to this company and ultimately force it out of business? So now they got the ultimately done, right? Because now they've been forced out of ultimately.
You know what? I'm thinking now, like, let's say the court system finds that Zillow and NAR were in violation, that they did do that, right? Then for sale by owners, kind of, I would think the next step with those then would be like listed on every.
Kind of. What do you think about it?
Right?
Yeah, kind of, right? So just imagine that you go to a broker's website, and in that website are not only their listings, but the listings of FSBOs.
Right.
Although FSBO have a hard time making they're at a competitive disadvantage, right? And antitrust, because they're not in the business of selling real estate, but they can make some kind of claim, I'm sure. So, back when we first put listings on the internet, I've got the picture, and the idea was, if we take all the listings of all the realtors in the country, which is an asset, and we put it on one site, and we don't put it anywhere else, it'll be like the Super Bowl, and it will gather eyeballs. The Super Bowl doesn't put it on 15 channels.
Right.
No.
They put it on one channel. They sell their commercials for millions and millions of dollars, because everybody knows you want to watch the Super Bowl, you go to watch the Super Bowl on ABC, NBC, CBS, wherever.
Right.
So the concept behind Realtor.com initially was, we're going to put them all in one place. And that's what I pitched across the country. We're going to put them all. I even have a copy of the Super Bowl trophy in one of my old slides. It says, here's why we want to put them all in one place. We have this marketing power. We're going to draw eyeballs to one place. Don't put them anywhere else.
Do you think that's an antitrust violation or no?
I did it, right? That's what we did. But here's what happened. Brokers, the story. So a Microsoft come and we're going to charge $1 a listing a month. And you're going to pay $1 a listing a month, and any lead that comes from it's your lead, and it's all yours, and it's $1 a listing a month, and don't put it anywhere else. And we launched it in NAR in Atlanta in November of '95, I think, at the NAR convention. And at that convention, Microsoft introduced its new portal, which was called Home Advisor, and it offered to take brokers listings for free.
Mm-hmm.
And when they decided, and we say, don't do it, don't put them over there. As the masses and the hordes ran over to the Home Advisor.
Right. To free, because who doesn't like free? Right.
Don't do it. This whole business model is based, and it's for you, and it's based on, and let's keep all your listings.
It's going to cover you, right? It's going to protect you as an agent, right?
And then 20 years later, everybody says, well, how come NAR sold us down the river?
Right. You sold yourself down the river.
You sold yourself down the river, right? Because of $1 a listing.
Right.
A month, $1 a listing.
Let that sink in, right?
But that was there's a lack of knowledge of the power and the value of the data.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right? If you don't know what something's worth, you won't get what it's worth, right?
Right.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
That's
Well,
a commission question.
I mean, I think that all of this stuff with the Department of Justice, with NAR, it's really like people need to get involved because this is their livelihood. If they want to better understand the context and they want to understand the whole picture, where's the best place for them to go, Saul?
TheDataAdvocate.com, TheDataAdvocate.com, and we've got all kinds of things, and we're keeping up with this probably as well as anybody else can keep up with it. It's amazing all the things that are going down. So TheDataAdvocate.com, and we're getting ready to do a newsletter because there's so much news, right?
You'll make it easy.
We'll make it easy and pick the top 5 things we think people need to know about.
And if they have questions for you specifically, how can they get a hold of you?
Saul at bettercallsaul.realtor or Saul at saulklein.com, which is my very first domain and the first email address I ever had.
Nice.
If you cast aside Prodigy and AOL and Compass.
Rachel, if people have a referral for you in Chicago or they want to talk to you, what's the best way?
The best way to reach me is by cell phone at 630-542-8688 or via email at rreal@dealwithreal.com.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.